Hello friends, welcome to the multi-cluster demo series. This is the first demo in the series, and in this demo we will cover only the multi-cluster configuration. So basically we will see how we can configure multi-cluster setup when you have two or more Kubernetes cluster configurations. So before we start, we should have two OpenShift clusters on which we will set up the multi-cluster, and one of them will work as hub and another will work as scope. In the end, after the setup, we will also test our configuration, whether our configuration is correct or not, and if there is a problem, we will fix that as well. Okay, so let's start that. So for that, actually, we have one pipeline created. I'll walk you through with the pipeline at the end of this demo. Pipeline is very simple. We need to run this OpenShift setup.sh, and in this script, we need to provide the kube config of hub and spoke. This pipeline works well if you have your kube configs available for the hub and spoke. So I have provided the path for their kube config like this. So before I hit enter, let me tell you that to run this pipeline, you will need a Kubernetes cluster. This Kubernetes cluster doesn't have to be the OpenShift one. You can use the OpenShift, or if you don't have OpenShift, you can use kind or any other Kubernetes cluster that you have. This script will install the Tekton pipelines on that Kubernetes cluster if it is already not installed. After installing that, it will run the pipeline, and the pipeline will basically configure your clusters for OpenShift pipelines operator and any other operator that is required, creating secrets and linking the spoke cluster to hub cluster, and in the end of the pipeline we will check if our correct configuration is correct or not. Okay, so let's go ahead. So hub secret is created, spoke secret is also created. So basically, when whatever configuration we provide, it will create those configuration as a secret on your kind clusters, and using those secret, it will do the further configuration. And you don't have to worry about your admin credentials, because those credentials will stay on your local kind clusters only. It will never be propagated to any of the OpenShift cluster. And yes, OpenShift cluster will also require to create some kube configs on your spoke cluster, but that will be created as part of the pipeline, and will that also with the minimal permission required. It will not be using the admin account. There will be separate service account created for that purpose, and that will be used to connect with the hub and spoke. Okay. So now our Tekton pipeline configuration is done. Now it is waiting for the pipeline to complete. We can check the logs here as well. So it is configuring hub and spoke cluster both in parallel. Yes. So next step is towards installing the operator. It's installing the operators. The queue operator it will install, as you must be aware that the base of the multi-cluster configuration is the multi-queue, and for that we need to install the queue operator as well as the cert manager operator. Once that is done, the operator Red Hat build for the queue operator is called RHBOK, that is Red Hat build of queue. So that is done, and now waiting for the queue operator to succeed. Okay, so queue operator is successful. Now after creating a queue operator, we create a custom resource called queue, named cluster. The queue custom resource is created on hub and spoke both. So every time you see the two lines, actually they are coming from two different tasks, one for the hub and one for spoke. And then finally installing the OpenShift pipeline operator. So OpenShift pipeline operator is the subscription is created for that. And then, so you see two lines, one subscription is created on a hub and one subscription is created on the spoke, and finally waiting for the Tekton pipelines to be completed. So we have config. So this Tekton config is created. Tekton config is basically to check our OpenShift pipelines is installed or not. It will, once it is ready, our OpenShift pipeline operator will be ready. OpenShift pipeline is basically the Red Hat downstream of the Tekton pipelines. OpenShift pipelines works on the OpenShift cluster only, while the Tekton pipeline works on any Kubernetes cluster. And this install operator step will not enable anything related to the multi-cluster. The role of the install operator is to install required operators on the clusters, and then we will do the spoke and hub cluster setup separately, because once the spoke cluster configuration is done, then only this spoke cluster can be added as a spoke in the hub cluster, not before that. Okay, so now the status you see, it is the version is already displayed. This is 1.22.0. This is the version of the OpenShift pipeline when the multi-cluster is first available. If you are using any OpenShift version lower than the 1.22.0, then its multi-cluster feature will not be available. Okay, so the Tekton config is ready. Great. Now, next step is to configure network policy egress. That is basically when you have the multiple cluster in the OpenShift, the clusters pod won't be able to communicate with each other by default. So we have to open that connection, and for that we define a network policy, and then finally enable multi-cluster. We are on the configure spoke step. Configure spoke, the generate cube config. This cube config is basically now we are creating another cube config from the spoke cluster, and this cube config will be linked to a service account called SA, multi-queue SA, and this will have limited permissions that are must for the cube config, this multi-cluster communication, not more than that. If there is any extra permission required, it will be added in future releases, but yeah, for now this will be creating minimal permissions. Okay, and finally in the configure hub doesn't have many steps. So whatever configuration we have done on the spoke, we add that spoke as a spoke cluster in the hub cluster. So finally that is done, and enable multi-cluster role. You see we have changed the multi-cluster role to hub. And finally the verification step, we check if the cluster is available. So step verification, and we are checking the cube config, and then we say multi-cluster active, true, a reason active message, it's connected. So that means our configuration is successfully working. And if have any doubt, then we can go to this screen. So in this screen, basically this one is hub and this one is a spoke. So let's see OC get multi queue cluster. Okay, so right now you see connected is equal to true, and it is connected since 92 seconds, so nothing to worry about that. And then if you try to do same script on here, OC get multi-queue cluster. Okay, so there is no resource because it's a spoke. On spoke there is nothing, but you will see one thing here, OC get service account. Okay, so here you will see an additional service account called multi-queue SA. Okay, so that is all about the configuration. In the next session, we'll talk about how to create a pipeline on the hub cluster, and we will see how the pipeline run is executing on the spoke clusters. So let's meet in the next video. Thank you. Bye-bye.